Hello, um, great to welcome you once again to another episode of FamilyWorth. Um, it's so good to be with you here again today. Um, it's always a pleasure to do this in season and out of season because for us, family is worth it. And that is the whole driver of this podcast. Family is worth it. Um, yes, many times a lot is happening around, um, um, whether you are in the Western world, wherever you are, a lot is happening in our world. And I think the more reason we need to have this kind of conversation. How do we promote the worth of family? How do we engage in positive conversation, all for family worth? So that is why we do this. It's not any expert here talking to people. No, I don't boast to be an expert. I'm just leading a conversation, and hopefully a number of people will connect with these. A number of people will be encouraged to have similar or different conversation of some other type. And we have always made it clear with FamilyWorth, our point of reference is a Christian worldview. And very important for us to also acknowledge that there are other worldviews. It's not a matter of being confrontational, no. It's just for FamilyWorth, because of the kind of subject, family, you need to have a point of reference so that if there is any conflict, we know where to go to, and that is the Christian worldview as documented in the Bible. So that is what we do here. Again, it's a community initiative. It's not meant to exclude, but we need to, like many other things in life, a point of reference is very important. So that if in doubt, you go to those references. But we try to make this conversation to be very inclusive. The other thing we promote, our key values in FamilyWorth: love, hope, and faith. These are our three cardinal pillars. Whenever we have this conversation, we have this behind our mind, we have behind what we do. We would like to promote love, um, that kind of God's love that doesn't expect something before you give. Hope, the world needs hope. Family narratives, family situation need hope. And the whole narrative of faith, faith, very important because that drives that positive action. We believe things will be better. We believe that irrespective of what we see today, it's going to get better. The other thing we promote a lot is wisdom. Wisdom is doing the right thing. This is our definition. I mean, wisdom could come in different shape. It's doing the right thing and doing it rightly. Because sometimes people do the right thing, but they don't do it well. And of course, if you do the wrong thing, or if you do the wrong thing in the first place, whether you do it rightly, you are doing the wrong thing. And finally, one of the big things for us in FamilyWorth, everything we do, this whole concept of balance. Balance is very, very important. So please, if you're joining us today, it's always very important. Check us out. We like to always get your input. Today's topic is very, very, very important and also quite sensitive. It's not the kind of topic that you hear that we talk about often these days. In some cultures, in some contexts, it's very difficult conversation. But it is something that is around the corridor in every home, in every family, in every community, in every nation. And I think for us, it's something that we just cannot overlook or assume of. It's something we need to have conversations about. Again, we know that there are experts, and when things need to be dealt with by experts, by psychologists, by psychiatrists, by medical professionals, yes, we don't want to go to that boundary. But in terms of everyday conversation as families, as communities, we still have our role to play. So it's a very important subject today. And I know that we had our banner out. This was our banner announcing this topic today. Uh, Unfortunately, and I must apologize for this, our guest today, Tandi Kuwana, could not join me. As you know, in life, things come up, and she has to give priority to family situation. And of course, in FamilyWorth, that is our key value. So yes, that is priority. But I have a plan, and this is the great thing. Just barely a week ago, Tandi was with us in live, and I'm going to still bring her in remotely, not physically, but a recorded version, and then we can still have that conversation. So we're still going to have conversation, but yes, Tandi sends her apologies. So why is this? Why this topic is very important? I want to just show this picture again, because um, the subject of mental health is very difficult, like I said earlier on, for some people, which is understandable. Um, but where you have a situation like this, with these statistics I have in front of me, it is unavoidable. We must have this conversation. This data is reflecting that of Australia, where I live, but I know that it's not unique to Australia. There's a lot of deaths by suicide. Any one death alone in its own self is quite painful. But yeah, we do not wish for anybody to be in a family where they have been suicided. You can only imagine the trauma. So that is why we need to keep talking about this. If this kind of conversation would at least trigger an awareness. Now, FamilyWorth is not at the forefront of this. There are massive efforts from the government side and other community groups to really, really provide this awareness. We must continue giving this awareness because every one loss is too many to afford. So just looking at these statistics, 3,000 deaths in 2018 due to suicide. Of course, we know that we're not here to judge anyone. It's a complex situation, but we also cannot deny the reality. It's what it is. Um, and that came to 8 deaths per day. And this is in Australia, 8 deaths every day. Males are more. I'm a man, and I can appreciate how it could easily get to that point for males, because sometimes it seems this is not personal experience. I'm not a psychologist. It seems we sort of internalize a lot of pain, men don't cry. Remember that narrative? Men don't cry. And you know the impact of that. If you keep it in there, it eats away. We're not saying that people should not have privacy, but hey, if it will take crying to prevent one more loss, amen. Please, let's cry. Let's cry a bucket. I would like to cry a bucket if it will prevent one more loss. Yeah, so it's quite a sad statistics, and it's the reality of things. It's just a reality. We cannot deny it, and that's why we brought this topic today, because I really think we need to talk about it. We need to keep um, creating the awareness. First, if no other thing, for myself. So, even if I don't have anyone on this, I'm not talking about it to sort of project negativity. It's not about positive and negative here. It's about awareness that this is real and that everyone, all hands need to be on deck to see how we can fight and win this battle. Um, so let me just quickly say that we appreciate your feedback. If you need to, please leave comments below. Even when you watch this later, the post-production on either our YouTube page or even our Facebook page, we still like to have your comment. There's no comment that is too late. Your feedback, and we always try to respond as soon as we can. We do that. And please, whenever you can, even post-production, you can still ask comments. We'll do all we can to respond. So I just want to, like I said earlier on, let me just quickly say here, and let me also remind us, please, we always like to get engaged. We want to engage with our stakeholders. If you can, please subscribe to our pages. We just want to keep you updated. We want to have more conversations, want to have more engagement and more contributions. That would be great. Now, without going too far here, let me start putting this out there. If you think any of these conversations has triggered some things already, or when you watch this post-production, the government of various nations do fund organizations and groups to provide support when it comes to mental health. In Australia, we have a few. One of them is Lifeline Australia. The telephone number is out there. They do a lot. They have real-time counselors that are ready to talk to you. And many of them these days, they are becoming very culturally sensitive. So if you need an interpreter, or you are from a specific culture, or you have a cultural concern, just be open with them. The key thing for them is that they want to provide support. So Lifeline Australia, another one that does a lot of good job is Beyond Blue. Beyond Blue is now a household name in Australia, and the number is there. Please, not just with this program, but peradventure, if anything we discussed today triggers something in you that you really think you need to talk to someone, hey, these guys are always ready to talk. They are there 24/7. And then for the kids as well. I mean, the subject of mental health these days does not recognize boundary of age, of culture, of race. We are all in this together. So I just wanted to put this number up front, please. Try and get in touch if you think you need to. So yes, let's get into business. One of the questions we really raised today. And of course, we don't want to start with the negative aspect. Just before this, let me bring in, I did tell you that unfortunately, Tandi could not join me today, but just about a week ago, Tandi did a kind of similar session with our line youth. The full video is on YouTube if you want to watch it, but I just want to bring some excerpt. It's a way of still bringing Tandi into this conversation today. When we watch excerpt, I will just come back and we'll try to unpack a few things. I will try to highlight a few things that have been mentioned. And please join me in the conversation, even post-production. That will be great to have you with us. So stay tuned as we hear from Tandi. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm a credentialed mental health nurse, but I also work with community organizations and I facilitate mental health literacy. I'm an associate lecturer at Curtin University and Notre Dame. I have a lived experience of depression, so mental health is very close to my heart, both as a professional and also as someone who's lived through the experience.
That's really good. Great to have you on, Tandi. And we're going to be throwing most of our questions to you and to the audience as well and to ourselves here. But it's great to have an expert in the field come on today. The first question I want to throw to the group. Actually, first of all, hello everyone watching there. Hope you guys have had an amazing week. Getting back to school. Hope you had amazing holidays. Hope you guys did something fun and got out the house. But yeah, I'm on to my first question. My first question for us today is, what is mental health? Because I really feel that there is two sides to the question, because mainly when we focus on mental health, we focus mainly on the bad stuff. But according to the Organization of Health, the World Health Organization, mental health is actually being able to cope with the daily stresses and daily goings of life. But mental illnesses is what we usually get confused mental health with or use interchangeably. For example, mental health illnesses include depression, anxiety, so on and so forth. But mental health, as I said earlier, is being able to cope with life's daily challenges and everything. And in saying that, I'm throwing the question out to you and to the audience as well. What do we think mental illnesses, or what do we understand about mental illnesses? I'll pass the question over to Tandi actually. What do you understand from working in the field about mental illnesses?
I think there is, like you say, there's a lot of confusion about what mental health is and what mental illness is. So we all have a mental health, just like we all have a physical health. But I think the confusion mostly arises for us people who come from culturally diverse backgrounds, that we don't have direct translations for mental health and mental illness. So the terms are used interchangeably. So when you're able to cope with life stresses and you do have the resources that you need to cope, you're healthy. But not everyone is going to be able to cope throughout their life. So as you struggle to cope, sometimes people need help. And that's when the mental health starts to deteriorate. When it does, it can start off as stress, and it continues to something like anxiety or depression, psychotic depression, and then you've got psychosis where people are responding to things that no one else can see. And again, the danger is for us from culturally diverse backgrounds, we don't have words for all this new terminology that we're coming across.
Yes, thank you for, like I said, this is the beauty of technology. I was still able to bring Tandi into this conversation. And there's one key thing that just hearing Tandi there. Not everyone will cope throughout life. So some people need help in families, in churches, in the community, in the workplace. And you see, the thing with our mental health is that it's not something you see easily. So just in response to that first question, is it a myth or is it real? I'm just hearing Tandi there. It is real. It's not a myth. It is not. It's not something that we can assume of. If it is happening, it is happening. So I really think having that conversation, even around our families, again, as you hear later, even again from Tandi and even experts, and that's what FamilyWorth is also the position of FamilyWorth, allow professionals to diagnose mental health illness. Let us stop self-diagnosis. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't listen to yourself. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't have conversations with people, but ultimately, and I know that we get caught up in that. I'm going to put myself on the line first, especially in the family context. We want to get in there. We want to solve it. Again, this comes down to men, fixers. We want to fix it. But hey, some things are not meant for you particularly to fix. And sometimes we just have to face that reality. But it is very important to know that not everyone will cope mentally at some point in time in our lives. And this situation may not be too far off, even from our family's context. So this is where it's very important to be able to have that conversation, to be able to have that conversation. Very important. And this is where sometimes it is challenging. How do you have the conversation? How do you introduce the topic? I mean, sometimes even in a room full of people, once you bring up that subject, especially among diverse cultural groups, mental health, and if you say illness to it, hey, you get some kind of look or some kind unease. I think we need to get past that. The earlier we do, the better for everyone. I don't have the quick solution. This is why we're having this conversation. But the earlier we do, the better for everyone. The earlier it's easier for me to ask someone, starting from my family, are you okay? Are you feeling well mentally? Do you need someone to talk to? Hey, the better for everyone. And again, where necessary, as soon as you can, get professional help. Get professional help. The subject of mental health, it's complicated enough than trying to fix it by yourself. Get professional help. And in countries like Australia, hey, it is made a lot easier. And the great thing now is that there is recognizable move to destigmatize mental health conversations. Because hey, sometimes you hear some statistics later on from Tandi, and it's there in the literature, in the public domain. I think 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 will experience mental health illness in their lifetime. For where we come from, unfortunately, sometimes when somebody is experiencing it, the next thing is that the person is crazy. No, 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 no. Especially if we can have early intervention. It's not about crazy. Of course, there may be times to take precaution because there are different levels. but very important to have this conversation. So the whole subject of mental health, it is not a myth. It is not a myth. It is real. If you've not experienced it close to you, then yeah, you should be thankful. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it's not so far from everyone. It is real. I know that people are going and coming on the platform. Again, subject matter is not an easy one sometimes to talk about, but if you can, it would be nice to know that you are there. Please let us know that you are there. And sometimes it feels alone here, even though I'm okay with it because I'm leading the conversation. But many times it's good to just know that someone is out there who also relates to the subject matter we bring. If the subject matter we bring on this studio or in this studio is no longer valid, we will shut it down. But so far the feedback has been good. So we keep bringing different subject matter. So if you're there and you are staying on, please let us know you're there. Let us know where you're watching from. Leave comments, contribute. The more the merrier, the more the richer. I'm not the authority here. I'm just trying to trigger a conversation on this important subject. So please let us know you are there. It's just so encouraging to know that you're watching and then you can contribute. Thank you very much. So again, we also want to say that maybe not immediate, but if you can subscribe to our channel. We believe what we bring is important. We believe the more the merrier, the more people can get engaged on this kind of conversation, on this kind of subject matter, the more it becomes out there and people will benefit more. So please connect with us. Today, we're really onto a very important subject, family and mental health. Please let me know if you're watching, unless you're you're not showing your face now, but unless you're so name shy, otherwise just a little bit of comment, let me know you're there, and then if you can, contribute as well. Once you type it in, I'll flag it on the platform, and then we can keep having a conversation. Like I already shared, Tandi could not be with us today, but it just happened that about barely a week ago, she was also a guest in the Line Youth session on the same subject matter, youth and mental health. Today is family and mental health. And she shared some remarkable, big, remarkable points there. If you want to watch the full video, this is the address. But I'll keep bringing EdSat, the beauty of technology, so I can still have Tandi with me on this platform. Let me bring Tandi again. Listen.
There are many factors, I guess, that contribute to mental illness. So there could be genetics. Mental illness runs in some families. And there could be drug and alcohol issues, which is always complicated what causes the other. But it could also cause, for example, drugs can cause first episode psychosis. So people can take drugs and they interrupt with their neurotransmitters in the brain, and this can cause them to again experience things that no one else is experiencing. And sometimes what we see. So that could be another cause. And then there's environmental factors. So your environment, and it goes back to what Tisha was talking about, how you're treated, how you're raised, and the core beliefs, what you believe about yourself. And then you also have social factors, and this is to do with the people again outside maybe your living environment, and it could be religion, it could be your social network. All of these things are important, and they do contribute to our overall well-being, or not. And also, I think one of the things that we most often in culturally diverse communities do not realize is that every time someone has a mental illness, there is an imbalance of chemicals. And that imbalance of chemicals, it's only psychiatrists sometimes or people in the medical field who have the know-how and the knowledge to treat it. So what we're seeing, the presentation that we're seeing, or the behavior that we're seeing amongst our loved ones, sometimes needs medical intervention. And then lastly, there are some physical illnesses that can cause someone to become psychotic. So there's so many various factors that come into play. It could be side effects of medication. I know for one, after I had I think it was my son, I had a C-section, and I was given strong medications at the time, and I started to hallucinate. I was seeing things that weren't exactly there. A lot of things were going on. So without medical intervention and seeing somebody who is a professional in the field, it's really hard to say for us community members to be able to pinpoint and say this is what caused this person to have a mental illness. So there's all sorts of various reasons, but every aspect of our life contributes to our mental health. So every aspect is important, from school to work, at home, your social network, and your friends. All of those things come into play, and there's genetics as well that we sometimes, in culturally diverse communities, we forget, because if no one ever told you that your great-great-parents had depression, you won't know that you're likely to develop it.
Yeah, for a fact.
There's a higher risk. So I just want to stress that point so that we start.
Yes, welcome back again. You heard Tandi there. Like I said, the full version of that video, which Tandi was guest to Lime Youth. I was also part of that program. You can see the full video here, but I'm just bringing some key points from that video into this session, because Tandi was supposed to be our guest today, but because of family priorities, she could not be here. And of course, FamilyWorth, family priority for us is big. So yes, that makes sense. So, she mentioned something there which I just want to highlight. And it's not just Tandi. I think it's clear now from research, from even conversations, that mental health illnesses could be hereditary. It could, like you said, if no one told you that your great-grandparent suffered depression, then you may never know, in terms of exploring, again, with professionals, why you are experiencing mental health illnesses. So again, this comes back to the need for openness, the need for conversations, the need for parents. Sometimes children, for me, in a family context, children sometimes are the most impacted in terms of mental health situation, because hey, they get born into a situation, they are there, they never knew anything. Now we're not saying it's every case like it's the practitioner mentioned just now, Tandi, she mentioned many things that could cause mental health illnesses. She did mention a lot of things there. You know, your physical health. So if you're not healthy physically, it could actually trigger episodes or even deterioration in your mental health. The kind of company you keep, again, that could lead to being involved in illicit drugs. And then before you know it, you go down the hill. And of course, mental health situation could be one of the outcomes. Now, the other social factors that she also mentioned there, but she did mention that there are also family predisposition. There are also family situation. So for FamilyWorth, that is one of our key focus because family is worth it. So every individual, you will think it's intuitive or it's given that as a father or as a mother, I would really want to protect my family 100%. Anything that I know may impact them, if no other thing, I should be open to have that conversation, to explore the chance or the risk factor of my family being caught up in it. Now, this is not meant to trigger any kind of witch hunting or families beginning to point fingers or accusation or individual families. No. The idea is to also highlight what the experts are saying, that some of the causes of mental illnesses could be a family sort of family hereditary or genetic disposition or whatever, the environment with which the children are being brought up. It all come together. And that is why we need to be open. We need to take steps. We need to be proactive to protect our families. Now, I'm not going to say that people should not have families again. Yes, we have families already. So, but we can take extra step to see that they are well mentally. So this brings me back to the other question, really. Is it just physical or is it spiritual? Mental health illnesses. And if we reflect back to what Tandi just shared, yes, it could be physical. She did not mention spiritual. This is where, again, the different religious bodies and how the limit to which you bring the spiritual aspect and the way is very vital, because quite a lot of complications have resulted from dealing with mental health or mental illnesses in the spiritual way. And of course, with FamilyWorth, we're not saying that there may be no spiritual dimension to such situations. But it's not meant to begin to add complications, injury to people that are already suffering or needing help. And this takes me back to what we used, I think it was last 2 weeks, when we were talking about peace. We believe a human being is not just what you see. And of course, if we're talking about mental health, do you see it unless the manifestation? So yes, we believe that there is more than the superficial. And that is why even in some counseling or helping professions these days, there is an increasing recognition of these dimensions in treatment as well. So I don't want to go deep into it. It's just in response to that question. Is it just physical or spiritual? I think sometimes we go to the extremes, and at the same time, I'm not going to be here and fault anyone, especially religious community groups that explores this aspect for solution. But how you do it, it's very, very important. We cannot afford to add injury onto an already bad or an already difficult situation for people. We don't want to leave people worse off as a result of exploring the spiritual aspect for help. It's very important. And that is why I go back again to what we see as wisdom. So even if you need to go to the spiritual realm when it comes to mental health, illness and solutions, but please, it needs to be done rightly. Like I said earlier on, I'm aware that even helping professions like counselors, psychologists, even psychiatrists, they're beginning to also recognize these aspects in some cases. Of course, they will work with the person that needs help. But our key point here is it needs to be done rightly. It needs to be done rightly so that we don't add injury to suffering. And this comes back to FamilyWorth. We believe these values of love, of hope, and faith. People need hope. And that also brings the third aspect of today's conversation. Because sometimes when you look at the whole subject of mental health and family in today's context, does it mean that it's hopeless or it's hopeful? And just listening to Tandi earlier on in that video clip, you can see that there is hope. There is hope. Let me just quickly bring again briefly, because it's always interesting to listen to her. Just listen.
I think for me, it goes back to some people in culturally diverse communities diagnosing others for the cause in mental illness. And as we try and look for the cause in mental illness, some of the causes that we think are quite shaming. So anything that brings shame upon anyone, hard to deal with in families, in social circles, and in friends. And unfortunately for us, again, the language that we use for mental illness in culturally diverse communities is shaming and is degrading. Because we're still using language that does not encourage people to speak up. It rather forces people to hide and isolate. So we have to be kind with our words. And I remember I was speaking to a very well-respected member of my community once, and she said to me, "Oh, that's unfortunate that you've been mad. Lucky for me, in my family, there's no one who's ever been mad." I did not react to that because I knew that she is ill-informed. So the language that we use is really important. So for someone who might have been going through a lot of things, to have comments like that within the community, it'll force people to hide. But I know what I stand for, and I know how prevalent mental illness is. 1 in 4 there's 5 of us here. 1 in 4 is likely to experience a mental illness at some stage in their lives. So we have to be mindful of the language that we're using when we're talking about the emotional struggles that others are going through. Again, it goes back to listening to understand people's experiences, and that can be really uncomfortable. And not giving people advice. Just because you know someone who's experienced it doesn't mean that you understand fully what that person is experiencing. Just because you've experienced it yourself also doesn't mean that you fully understand what the other person is experiencing. So to encourage these conversations, we need to have more people who are brave enough to share their stories so that people can start to realize that it can happen to anyone. I work in the field. I've been working in mental health for almost half my life in the mental health sector, but it happened to me. And now I'm an associate lecturer, but I
Wow. Yeah, I mean, you can feel that that authentic voice. That it's I just want to highlight some things that Tandi mentioned there. And again, I know before she quoted it, it would have been in the public domain. 1 in 4 are likely to experience mental illnesses in lifetime. 1 in 4. And they will be in our families, in our communities, in our workplaces, in the church. So this is a reason why it's not something that we can just seal our mouth about and hope that it will go away. No. We need to be open to talk about it. It doesn't have to result in something happening very close to us before we can talk about this. And then she mentioned something key. She didn't need to say that. It's just what is right. Let's be kind. And I am learning this rope myself. And particularly we of culturally and linguistically diverse background, or if you like, migrants and multicultural people, let us be kind. If you don't understand, seek knowledge, seek understanding, rather than wounding people. Let's give hope instead of injury. Instead of injury, let us give hope. So there is hope when it comes to mental health situation, people. There is hope. Because the feeling sometimes when you hear of suicide, especially when the person is close to you or a friend or a friend's friend or whoever, even a stranger, and even young people these days in families. The feeling is it's not even you that is not part of that family. You feel a very bad lump in your throat, and you can only imagine what it is for the family that are impacted. So we have to, this is not inconveniencing in my own part to do this. And I hope I don't need to say it or try to defend myself. There's no personal agenda here. It's part of family world because family is worth it. And this is the other thing that just came out there, and I think this is very, very important. And we need to have more people who are brave enough to share their stories. It requires bravery, I must say, but I think we need to keep looking for those courageous ones as much as we can to share, so that people that feel that they are alone can know that they are not alone. We are in this together. So can I just say again, it may be different for your different countries. If as a result of being part of this program today, there is, you just feel you need to talk to someone about your mental health, even as a family, you know, family member that needs to talk to someone. This is in Australia, Lifeline Australia, Beyond Blue Australia, and Kids Helpline, Headspace is there as well for youth. So please, let's keep talking about this. Let's keep the conversation going. This is a FamilyWorth studio because family is worth it. Again, our point of reference is the Christian worldview. We believe that, yes, we just our hearts go out to people that are doing it tough when it comes to mental health. Sometimes there's so much helplessness, but hey, there's help out there. Even if your family, your immediate circle of influence may not know what to do, but I just shared those numbers. There is help. There is help. Reach out, and get help. But again, we believe that there's a need for balance in life. That's what we promote. We believe that there's hope for someone that they may be suffering suffering mental illness today. Like the expert said earlier on, it's true. If you see someone suffering from cancer, you don't feel that the person has done anything bad, but you just want to go out and help. So it shouldn't be different from mental health illness. It shouldn't call for exclusion. It shouldn't call for stigmatization. Rather, it calls for help. It calls for reaching out. So that is why we brought this topic today. So thank you so much for joining us. Like I said, we appreciate your feedback. Even when you watch this later on, post-production, please leave us some comment. We do appreciate. You can ask questions even later on. It's still okay. We always try to respond as soon as we can. And yes, please subscribe to our channels. We want to always keep connected. We want to keep doing these value-adding conversations. So hope this will trigger something positive in someone because it's all about hope and living hope with everyone. Thank you for being with me today. I just want to once again, even though she could not be here physically, I thank Tandi. She's been very supportive with our Lyme youth. And then she's also been part of this, just that family priority. She sends her apologies. But thank you for joining me today. I've really had a good conversation. I can still see that some people are still joining me online last minute. We're rounding up now. Do you want to just say hello before we round up? Let me say bye to you. If you're online, can you give me a shout out? That would be great. Otherwise, whichever way, I still say thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that you were with me today. So see you next fortnight. We always want to bring topical issues to discuss in a positive way that would give hope, and that will be done in love, and that will be that will promote faith action, because we believe that things can turn around for the better. Thank you for being with me today. See you next time. Thank you.